So now I'm going to replace this piece before I move into the rear portion as well as this portion. So the arch is what's next. This is the first rust repair that I did using the old welder, and the very first time I'd ever done rust repair. I wasn't happy with these welds, and so you never saw this video because I filmed it and I just didn't like it, and so I pretended it didn't exist for a little while. But I think we'll cut it all out and we'll go from there, and we'll keep working moving forward. So let's get back to it. Starting out with one of my favorite tools, I go ahead and start cutting out the spot welds here on this rear arch, and then I use the 4.5-inch angle grinder and cut off the rest of that arch piece. Later on, I'll notice that I can actually get to underneath this portion and cut out some more spot welds, which will allow me to better hide the welds on the wheel arch as I install it. I then use the flap disc to sand all the surfaces so I can get a good welding penetration. I then follow up the wire with the wire wheel to clean up some of the caked on undercoating and other detritus from around the surfaces. Look at the floor as it accumulates. It's disgusting. So I've cut off the rear arch. I've left pretty much where I'm going to have the metal combined to the other metal. So of note, this has a different kind of spot weld. It's not actually spot welded, but it's roll crimped welded. I don't know what the term is called, but so this whole thing would have to be just like ground off. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand it probably one more time and then hit it with some weld through primer, but this is going to act as my base. So it'll be double thickness right here, and I'll plug weld it throughout here. And there's some spot welds here as well as right here that I'm going to cut out, and I'm going to actually cut the arch back. That way I don't have a seam of welding right here. Instead it'll be spot welds along here like they did on the original, and then it'll allow me to keep the weld seams pretty much out of view for this whole portion of the car, which I think will make it look a lot nicer. I don't have a lot of additional things to say at this portion of the video. I start by marking out each of the spot welds that are currently there, and then I work to cut them out with a drill bit as well as the spot weld cutter, using some WD-40 as cutting fluid to ensure that I can keep my drill bits cooler. Once I get that done, I start to cut away the other pieces. If you just found your way to my channel, this is part 49 of this Datsun project. I have done quite a bit of work in the past, including swapping in a 2-liter engine, a 5-speed transmission. That rear suspension that you see right there as well is also new, and a lot of other little things. This is an ongoing project for me. I do have new front suspension, brakes, steering, and a whole bunch of other things planned as I continue to move forward after I get done fixing the trunk, the front of the car, and several other rust repairs. So once I get done with that rust repair, we'll go into probably some more interesting portions of this. You can see that I'm measuring, trying to ensure that I don't cut too much off of this wheel arch. If I were going to do this again, I probably would have chosen a slightly different path to cut it, so that way I could install even more of the arch. But you'll see that I cut out a small chunk of it just so I don't have to destroy that part that's currently on the car. I do find out that I cut out a bit too much, as I thought I did one angle when in fact I did another on the car, which stinks, but it is what it is. Lots of mock-ups, clamping in place and seeing whether that works. I also had to sand down and remove the paint along all the surfaces that would be attached to the car or welded to the car. That is what you saw me doing with the wire wheel a few seconds ago. Danielle, do you want to explain what I'm going to do next? She has no idea. All right, I'm going to trim a little bit off the front of this just to bring it back, because the rest of the reference points seem to be pretty spot on. So I went ahead and place this part right, I left myself some space here so I could actually sink the welds here. I'll stitch weld that back up just to make sure it's nice and clean. Coming around here, you'll see I made one mistake here where I thought I had gone straight up with this piece like I did right here, but in fact I curved in and I didn't realize it until I looked at the piece after I already cut. It never seems to fail. I do something wrong like that. But this goes down and it matches pretty well to where it's supposed to be. So all in all, I really like the way that looks. Now I'm going to go ahead and set the fender on it and see what it looks like with it on. But I'll probably do that off camera. Then I'll cut the holes and I'll plug weld this into place all along here. It's this whole lip. But I'm pleasantly surprised and with the way this turned out so far, so that's good news. I cut out that little piece that I accidentally didn't have on. However, I'll install that later, probably tomorrow. I then mark out all the spots for the different spot welds around the corner, and then I use my punch tool to put in those holes. I absolutely love that little tool. It saves so much time whenever you're punching through sheet metal. Out of all of the Harbor Freight tools that I have, I will say that one's probably one of my most useful, and I would highly suggest if you're going to work panels, especially thinner ones, that you go ahead and grab that tool and use it regularly. It will save you so much time. Then I go ahead and spray on the weld through primer, let it dry, and attach the wheel arch to the car. I start out with the plug welds on the wheel arch just to ensure that they are hidden away and that they look good. I also make for sure that I cool down these panels to avoid warping. So you'll see me after each weld getting a damp cloth and actually running it over the surface to try to keep the temperatures cool on this panel. Using a clamp, I clamp down the piece, I put in a plug weld, and then I move the clamp onto the next piece and just continue to move up the arch to ensure that it's very tight as I weld these two pieces together. Lately my camera has been acting up, and I've finally traced the problem, I believe, to some bad batteries that I have that are starting to swell. So you'll notice over the next couple videos that there will be jumps in time where I don't have a video showing the work. It's not because I'm not filming usually, it's usually because I've lost the video after the fact, which really gets frustrating. Well, those last few welds were not going very well, so I'm gonna call it quits. I think I'm just getting tired. I've got to finish tacking this the arch onto the rocker panel, finish getting the rocker panel tied in here, trim that down, fill in this gap here, and then also fill in this gap here. But the arch itself, there's also a little bit of welding back here that I need to do. The arch itself is in, the rocker is in, the front of the rocker is in, and this back panel is off. Before I move off of this, I gotta remove this, figure out this spot, clean out the rest of the trunk, cut this piece out. But that'll be next time. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, go ahead, give me a thumbs up or comment, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate subscriptions as I try to work my way towards 1,000 subscribers. We're almost at 600 on this video. YouTube should be suggesting some next videos either here, or all around me. Go ahead and click around. Thanks for coming out and watching, and stay stuck in.